Hello and welcome to Long Beach Lens. I am your host, Derek J. Simpson, Executive Director of the Long Beach Community Action Partnership. Today our guest is a council member for Long Beach 4th District, and I'd like for you to join me in welcoming Councilman Daryl Supernaw. How are you, Councilman?
Great to be here.
Good to have you here. And we were just talking, I was mentioning that whereas in many of the other elections in recent years we had the candidates in, but for your election, we didn't have that, and you were saying that was a special election.
Right, it was a special election to fill an empty seat. So 2015 it was not an election year. So, and it was a winner-take-all election for that reason. But I was happy to get over 50% of the vote anyway.
And you got 52%, I think.
Right, I'm impressed.
Yeah,
you know that fact.
And your candidate, I think your opponent was maybe at 42%, and then there was a significant drop-off. But what do you attest your success in that campaign to? Because I know you've been very involved in the community, but what do you think got through to the constituents of the district that said you were the guy for that job?
Well, I'm a community guy, and in fact, it's unique that a candidate has lived his entire life in the district where he's running. So I'm a lifelong 4th District resident. Also, I ran in 2012. A lot of people forget about that. Oh, really? And in that primary, I won that primary in April 2012, and then I lost in the runoff. So there was a tremendous amount of name recognition there.
Okay.
And I think that helped a lot in 2015.
What stands out most in your mind now that you've been maybe about 7 months or so as we do this, but in your experience on the council thus far, what comes to mind is those things that are experiences that will not soon be forgotten?
Well, I think it's just the intensity and the volume of the number of issues and how they come at you. You know, obviously I know the district very well, 30-year community advocate, but there's nothing to prepare you for how many issues come at you almost on a minute-by-minute basis. That's a little bit of a surprise, but it's exciting to address it all.
And those issues that are coming at you are not just for your district alone, because you're also looking out for the greater good of this entire city as well, correct?
Absolutely, and to that point, I ran on the basis of just covering my entire district. Right. That is a challenge in and of itself. To describe the district, we go from the El Dorado Park Nature Center in the east all the way to Cambodia Town. So it's a very wide, very diverse district, and I wanted to cover the whole thing.
Right, and I know I was just in recent months at an event for the Cambodian community, and you were there, and it was great to see the support that community has for you and what you do in the district.
Yeah, well, that was an award I received. They were kind enough to give me an award, but that's what I ran on, that promise to really represent the entire district.
And you've mentioned several times just in this short period of our conversation about your work in the community, and I know that in reading about you before this interview, you were really involved in some significant initiatives for the 4th District. But what are some of the ones that you maybe have the greatest affinity for?
I'm best known for the Atherton Ditch Project, and if you live in East Long Beach, you know about that, or go to Cal State Long Beach. We had an open concrete culvert running from basically the Cal State Long Beach pyramid all the way east to the Los Cerritos Channel. And that's the one I got famous for because I worked on it for 20 years. And
wow.
I hope my next project doesn't take that long, but it turned out to be a $3 million infrastructure project that with others I managed to get done as a private citizen.
Now, 20 years, was that because of the bureaucracy of varying levels of government, or?
Yeah, and it's not like that's a full-time job. It's that I began petitioning the city in 1985, and it took 20 years before the completion of the project. But, oh yeah, and that's through 4 different council members, so that's another challenge there too.
Wow. Now, when you were running for 4th District, as much as you were involved, were there some things that you learned about the district that, as a candidate, that you really didn't totally understand or realize as that citizen that lived in the district? You know,
that's a great question, because I thought I knew it all because no skill there, I just had been around there all my life. Yeah. But what surprised me in 2015, I'll have to say, is that how emotionally attached the voters were to my election. So many folks told me on the porch in 2015 just how disappointed they were that I didn't win. And I hadn't realized that how in tune the voters were to their representation.
Yeah, and are those constituents still like in touch with you, quite frankly? All the
Yeah,
time, huh?
they know how to get a hold of me, and they
Right.
do often. And that's kind of the good part about the job, is getting to know so many more people than you knew before. It's a real nice aspect of it.
Now, I would imagine with all that you've done, both as a volunteer when you were in the community and in the campaign, that you had certain insight as to how the city of Long Beach worked, meaning the staff and how the different departments work together, et cetera. But I think I read something where you talked about the fact that it's important to have relationships with the staff as you do your job as well as a city councilman. Would you agree that that is the case, and how is that going for you now that you're on the council?
Well, I think that's a tremendous advantage I have. I know how the systems work. Staff, an interesting part there, I've had very close relationships to certain staff members, and they might have retired or moved on, so you have to have that skill set to develop those new relationships. But I think that helped a lot because I'd done so many things. And really, I have to give props to the staff members who had the faith in me as a private citizen to allow me to do so many things and work with them. I can remember actually being invited to pre-construction meetings on projects and whatnot, and that's kind of unique for a private individual to be involved at that level.
What, Councilman, I know politics always gets involved in things, but at the end of the day, we're just individuals that care, about the city, whether we be a staff person or a city council person or just a citizen out there. But if you could speak to all involved, what would you say would be some of the things that, if you could wave a magic wand, that would really help to get things moving, maybe even better for us in terms of productivity of the policies that you'd like to pass, or just coming up with great ideas that can come forward and we make happen? Are there certain things that you just wish, man, if I could just change this, or if I could get these people to the table? Does that ever come to mind?
Well, I think about it a great deal because I'm a collaborator. Right. And I think, and we just had a council meeting last night, and I think the sometimes adversarial relationship between the public and their elected officials, I understand frustration, and I don't want to be dismissive of it, but if we could just collaborate more, I guess that's the magic wand, because I think we're really on the same page. We want what's best for Long Beach, but I'd like to see us not start off with that negative position, I think.
Right. Well, speaking of collaboration, I mean, you were the sort of new kid coming into the council. Everyone else had a little time to gel as a new council. How has that relationship been with your colleagues on the council?
Well, that's been one of the pleasant, I don't want to say surprises, but a lot of the pundits predicted, how's this guy ever going to work with anybody? Right. 7 of the 8 sitting council members endorsed one of my opponents. The mayor endorsed one of my opponents. Oh, wow. And there was some speculation, how will this guy ever get along? And I just have to hand it to my colleagues, because they couldn't have been more warmer or more welcoming when I came on board, and that was just great.
In that regard, then, are there particular instances where you're really proud of how your collaborative experience with them has gotten something done on the council in your first 7 months?
Absolutely, and we form bonds with council members who we might have a like interest in a particular area. Right. One that comes to mind would be the airport, and my connection with Al Austin and the 4th and the 8th District have a connection with the airport. We're at opposite ends of Runway 30, right, but we have the same neighborhood impact. So that kind of forges alliances that have really served us well.
Speaking of the airport, if I may for just a moment, I love flying out of Long Beach Airport, and I do it whenever I can, and my next option would be maybe John Wayne. The last option would be LAX, just because of construction, et cetera. But what do you see in the future? I mean, I know there was a lot of talk about the international terminal, and I don't want it to get political in the sense of pros and cons, but what is your vision for the airport and the community around it?
Well, I think it's always been the same, that I want it to be economically healthy. I want it to be an economic engine for our city. We don't share funding, but it serves the city in general. And I think that, well, actually, since we have a study going on now that will come before me, technically that's not something I can really comment on. Okay. But I think that what the bottom line is, we want to protect our noise ordinance. I think it's unique and something very special to Long Beach, and we don't want to do anything to jeopardize it.
Good, and I respect that. And didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No,
but,
no, don't.
But I know it's always, you know, points of contention, whether you're living, I mean, people who may not live at one end or the other of that runway may not feel the certain sense of urgency that the people that do.
Well, that's absolutely true, and within my own district. And that's one thing in coming aboard. I pledged to represent the entire district. And you know, the folks on the east side care about the airport noise and coyotes. The folks on the west side of the district don't have those challenges. So what we've done, we've taken a unique approach. I was originally going to have my monthly community meeting kind of central in the district. And what we did is we just doubled the effort. We have back-to-back community meetings now. One at the Los Altos Library on the last Tuesday of the month, and then the last Wednesday of the month, the next night, we have it at Orizaba Park. And that way we can really address the individual concerns of the citizens.
How's the attendance been?
It's been great. We've had overflow crowds.
Wow.
The energy level, and Orizaba Park is a brand new community, and but independent of the attendance at this point, I need to stay the course. I need to set, you know, this as the rule. This is how we're going to operate. We'll be here every last Wednesday of the month, so please join us.
Now, for those who may not know, where is your field office actually located?
Well, we actually do not have a field office, and that's one thing, that was one of my biggest surprises coming aboard.
Wow,
that's one thing I thought would be essential because we are pretty far from downtown. What happened was when I came aboard, there's so many things you talk about, surprises and whatnot. Well, the budget was a big one. I knew of all the projects because I was close, but I didn't realize they hadn't been paid for. And that's actually our obligation because my previous council had voted these projects in. So I came aboard inheriting a lot of debt or a lot of unpaid bills. So that put the field office on hold for right now, but we'll definitely get us up and running in a field office.
Great. Well, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we will continue our conversation with Councilman Daryl Supernaw. Stay tuned for more of Long Beach Lens.
Very pet friendly. Everybody has a dog in Long Beach. It's Dog City.
Well, there's everything to do here. You got the Pike, you got Queen Mary, you got the beaches, you got paddle boarding, surfing. You go half a mile that way, you got surfing, you got downtown.
I just think it's the most incredible, most beautiful, most unique city, which has so much to offer. So I love it here and I'll never leave.
I'd like the variety. One day we could be working on filming a TV show, talk show here in the studio. Other days we could be taking some of the equipment out in the field and filming something out there. We could be editing.
It's been cool to work in the studio and all that and learning about lighting, audio, and camera work. I think that working for PadNet or being an intern has been really great. If you're looking for an internship, PadNet would be a great place to start.
Hello, welcome back to Long Beach Lens. I'm your host, Derek J. Simpson, and we've been having a great conversation with our councilman in the 4th District, Councilman Daryl Supernaw. We really appreciate you coming in and providing insight. And as I was reading about you, I thought about a statement that I saw where your constituents really wanted to have someone in that office that could get things done. And in the break we were talking about a particular project that was an area of focus and concern, and you made some things happen positively there.
Right, well, I had quite a legacy to live up to, so I thought now that I'm like it, I better not blow it now. But we were very fortunate. We put a lot of work in 2 projects that got some press. One was the 2 nuisance properties on Hill Street. Most people don't realize that the 4th District actually goes what most people think is Signal Hill, but actually the steep hill, Hill Street, that goes up to Temple. There were 2 residents there built that were never occupied, they were never permitted. And they had been around for 12 years, so I knew all about them. We were able to get those torn down, demolished within my first 4 months of office. So I thought I would be able to get it done. I didn't know I could do it that quickly, so we're very proud of that. The other piece where we received a little bit of press was on a youth home, a 40-bed youth home in my district. And the kids there were both from the probation department and foster care from the county. And it was, that had festered for about 3 years. And that's interesting when you think, I thought I knew everything about the district. I had not heard of about that, but I did hear about it my first week in office. And we started investigating, and then county probation came in, and they actually pulled the plug on sending kids there. And that was, it really kind of saved the neighborhood there. It was really been inundated by all the problems associated with that. So we were happy to resolve that. But interesting, I'm a forward-looking guy. I like to be positive. And one thing that came out of that, I found out that homeless students at Wilson High School, there's a little bit of a stigma with the clothes they were being assigned, the school uniforms. And they really wanted to have school sweatshirts with logos and whatnot. So we developed a program to purchase those for the kids at Wilson. So that was a positive that came out of that kind of negative situation.
Cool. Now, as you're talking, I'm thinking about the 9 districts, and yours is actually really unique in the sense that you have, you know, very affluent communities, and then you have, on the other extreme, those that are living within the shadows of poverty as well. Most others are pretty much all or one of the other. But how do you keep that balance in your office? Because I would imagine sometimes what some of your constituents want may be contrary to maybe what some of the other ones may feel is the priority at that time.
Right. Well, I think the dual community meetings once a month addresses that pretty well. But at the end of the day, I think my constituents just want the same things. They want public safety, they want quality of life issues addressed, and infrastructure is a big one, especially in the 4th District. We found out from our Director of Public Works that the 4th District has the worst streets in the city.
Wow.
And there's a formula for that because of our density, we're not as large geographically, but we have the greatest percentage of bad streets in the district. We are also the only council district without a fire engine. So there's your public safety issue. Although we have the fire training center in my district, we do not have a fire engine. And so that's your infrastructure, that's your public safety, and then the other part of public safety would be crime, of course, that we now currently house the East Division of the Long Beach Police Department that's moving to our border with the 5th District. So there's a commonality amongst the constituents, and I think at the end of the day that people just have the same interests.
Now, when we pull up out of your district and we look at the city as a whole, I know that our mayor is very progressive and forward-thinking, and the council itself has been really looking forward on different innovative projects. What do you see as the priorities for the 4th District? Let's start there in the year to come. In 2016, what can your constituents and the rest of us look for in terms of priorities for you and your district?
Well, I think it sounds a little mundane, but it always goes back to finances or the budget. That's so pervasive. It's you know, kind of drives everything we do. We got some good news last night that our deficits are not going to be quite as bad in 2017, and we're bringing that number down.
That is good news.
Yeah, that's great. Hey, it's better than the alternative, you know. So we'll take it. But I think just the items I mentioned before, the priorities are definitely public safety, the infrastructure, and then just the quality of life issues. And to that, we have brought out some initiatives. We've formed a 4th District Homeless Task Force. And that is, we're addressing homelessness in the 4th District on our own, where we certainly work with our partners in the police department and health department, but we've got to focus within our district. We're also beginning for lack of a better term, a task force on aging. That'll be 4th District. We've done that citywide. Dee Andrews and I introduced an item at council citywide, but I'm going to be prepared that we can roll our 4th District people into that citywide program when that time comes.
And you said 2 things of interest there. One is the aging and then homeless, but recently, for instance, I lost my father in September of 2015, and it was an eye-opening experience to look at the cost of having an elderly family member at home. Of course, he was in Alabama, so I would imagine here it's even worse. But that task force on aging has to be something, especially as we baby boomers are getting older and in that position. That's got to take on quite significance, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And I lost my father in 2007, and
Right.
he was a retired Long Beach firefighter.
Right.
Very good pension, but
Yeah.
it wasn't enough to cover his medical costs at end of life.
Yeah.
So it is a challenge, and I just think the collaboration is going to be key so we can share these stories out
Yeah.
there.
And then when you mentioned homelessness, again, our mission here is to help families move from poverty to self-sustainability. How can an agency like Long Beach Community Action Partnership, that's a nonprofit agency, maybe work closer with your district office? Because we can't frankly think that the government's going to be able to do it all. I mean, it's going to take a community-wide effort of collaboration. But do any ideas come to mind in terms of how agencies like us or others out there can get involved and be supportive?
Well, I think it's just the communication piece is key for us. Getting the information to our office, and we can bring the resources together, and that's part of our task force, because you talk about it takes a village. Homelessness is the epitome of that, because you have the health department, key people, the multi-service center, and then the police department, and the quality of life unit with our police department. They are key players also. And then it's just education of the community. And that's a piece too. And I think if we get all those factors working together, that we can, and we've had some successes already, so we're looking forward to that.
It's interesting you say that, because I was doing some research on preventative health, and in a city in Northern California, they were talking about how by getting people in the community out into the public spaces of the community to do yoga or walking clubs or other things, that basically takes that illegal element, it puts it sort of at bay, because now more people are out and about, and they found that is preventative health in the sense that it helps to make the streets safer, because the community's out engaged in the parks or in public spaces. Are we looking at innovative things like that where we can get the community more engaged? And I grew up in Alabama where everybody on the block knew each other, and sometimes here you don't know your next door neighbor.
Right. Well, to that, and actually here again, Councilmember Andrews and I co-authored a piece on, he introduced it, I co-sponsored it, on a dog walker network.
Yeah.
That is, we have all these folks out walking. Now, we took a little heat from it because, the serious crime, that's probably not going to do the job.
Right.
But if we can use the dog walker network to address some of the less serious crime, well, that frees up police resources for the more serious crime.
Well, I think it's natural. I mean, first and foremost, I can't imagine a city that loves dogs more than Long Beach.
Right.
In my time here. But with that said, it is someone who's out and alert and is conscious of the fact that they can be aware of the community. Of course, you don't want to put people in harm's way, so there has to be restrictions. So that's great, though, that you and Councilman Andrews and others, I'm sure, are supportive of innovative things that are maybe best practices in other cities that we can bring here to Long Beach and to your district.
Yeah, and I believe that is from a former deputy chief in Long Beach, went to another city and developed that program, and we brought it back. And Councilman Andrews and I share a border. It's Gardenia Avenue. He has one side of the street, I have the other, so we have a lot of commonalities there.
Now, when you look at the council as a whole, what do you see as some of the challenges for 2016? We mentioned that the budget deficit isn't going to be as large, but there still may be a budget deficit that you have to address. But what are some of the other challenges that you see facing?
Well, as I said, it always gets back to that budget. Money will fix a lot of things, but if you don't have it, you're going to have a lot of issues. Right. And I just think we have to keep coming up with those unique solutions. My background is business. I'm a private sector guy, so I'm used to jumping in and coming up with a solution quickly. And that's part of the learning curve. In fact, as a community advocate, I had a lot more freedom in many ways than I do now, that I have some constraints in terms of what I can say publicly and whatnot, because I tend to want to get after it and get it done, and I have to hold back sometimes to make sure that we're doing things the right way.
What makes you proudest about being the council member that represents the 4th District?
You know, it's my hometown. There's a lot of pride there, of course. But I get a lot of satisfaction from hearing people who I've helped. And you don't get into it for a pat on the back or an attaboy or anything like that, but it's really nice to see the folks who had a problem and we could resolve it for them. I had one case where one of my constituents, who's in her 90s, had a tree that was diseased, and she was worried about it falling down. And my mom's in her 90s, so I knew that this was going to bother this woman. She was going to lose sleep over it. So we managed to get right in there and get it taken out. And she called me after that and said, you know, in 50 years of living here, I've never called a councilman. And I'm just so happy it worked so quickly, I'll have to call you again. Of course, I told her, no, you're only allowed one call every 50 years.
So we've talked about that district office not being out there in the community in your district. If people want to reach out to you, given what they've heard and what they already know about you, what's the best way for them to reach your office?
Well, you can certainly call us. And one thing that the public doesn't know about leaving a voicemail, they figure, oh, they're going to call the office, and our number is 570-4444 for District 4. But if you leave a voicemail, that actual audio file gets emailed to me. So I don't escape the office. You can get a hold of me 24/7 that way. So don't hesitate about leaving a voicemail. Also, email is great. We like a record of everything that comes in, so email is perfect, and that's district4@longbeach.gov, and that's numeral 4, district numeral 4@longbeach.gov. Okay. The one challenge we have would be social media. That's tough. I don't think the taxpayers want me spending my time on Nextdoor, and we don't have a good way of tracking those complaints there. So the best way is just contact the district office directly.
Okay, well, we're out of time, Councilman, and we really appreciate your leadership and joining us here. That concludes our show, and we'd like to thank Councilman Daryl Supernaw for coming on the show. Be sure to follow PadNet TV on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram for the latest updates. This show has been brought to you with the support of the Long Beach Community Action Partnership. Thank you for watching Long Beach Lens.